Consider Cannabis is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment recommendations. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition.
I'm not going to tell them and get in this big argument, but I'm going to let them know that there's definitely two sides of the story, and I don't think you're on the right one.
It's time to consider cannabis. I'm your host, Curtis. This is the 21st episode of Consider Cannabis. Last week, we talked to Brian Higgins, a lawyer at Frost Brown Todd in Cincinnati, Ohio. If you missed it, you should take some time to go back and give it a listen. But you should really wait until we've talked to our guest this week, Emma Vogt. Now, Emma is the first adolescent guest we've had on the show, and she's currently using CBD to treat anxiety. Now, Emma's here with her mother, Tiara Rowland. You may remember Tiara Rowland from Lotus Health, the name of her health practice, as well as our 13th episode. Another one you should check out if you haven't heard it yet. I want to take a moment right now to thank all the supporters of the show that stepped up to help bring this episode to you this week. We are all part of this cannabis community, and I really felt that this week. Now, I'm still not 100% sure if I got stood up or if it was technical issues on my side, but it wasn't looking good for this week's episode. And with a little ask on social media, I really felt the support of the cannabis community. So I want to thank all of you and to encourage all of us to keep supporting one another. Because you never know, sometimes a little effort on your part can have a huge impact on the life of someone else. Now, my life has already been impacted, and I'm sure the lives of others will be influenced also by this episode and the future episodes that are going to come from what admittedly was actually a big ask on social media, but the cannabis community stepped up in a big way. So I want to just a real big heartfelt thanks to all Consider Cannabis supporters out there. And if you didn't step up yet, there's still time. You can contact us at considercannabisnow.com, and we will make arrangements to record and share your cannabis story as well. Because I am a firm believer that patient testimonies break the stigma. But that's enough for me right now. Let's join Emma Vogt, and we'll consider cannabis together. Emma, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
You're how old?
14.
You're 14.
Yes.
And you use cannabis.
Yes, I use CBD oil.
CBD oil. And what do you use it for?
Well, I have really bad anxiety, and instead of taking melatonin, I can take it right before a test. I take it in the morning and at night. It just helps me relax and concentrate better, focus, and really my test scores have gone up tremendously. Using it, I've been able to focus. My anxiety's been a lot lower, and yeah.
When did your anxiety start?
When she was born.
Yeah, really when I was born. Kind of runs with our family. It was just those little things that slowly would make it trigger, and...
So how long have you been on CBD?
I'd say about 2 years is when I started. I took it the first time. I remember my mom was on the phone with my dad talking about some article, and she just got her Four Corners package. And she's like, I just gave your daughter CBD. And but I mean, I didn't really notice it right away because I didn't notice, I didn't know what was, going to happen or how I was supposed to feel. My automatic instinct was, am I going to feel high? Because that's what I get told is you just get a high off of it. And that's all you want. And that's why people use it.
Who told you that?
Just school.
Just people at school?
Yeah, people at school. And I feel like that's what it's labeled as, is getting high. And it wasn't really, I feel like I was 12, and I didn't really know too much about it. And see, it wasn't a big talk around school, or wasn't, I didn't really have health class to really learn about it or anything about that. So
I really want to know what it's like to be you if you didn't have your CBD. Describe to me your first warning signs and how it progresses from there.
Well, I definitely can tell when I don't take it.
Yeah.
That's a huge, I need to take it because it's totally different from when I take it and when I don't. But when I don't take it, especially for test days or when I'm reading a book, I just don't remember what I just last read or what I just read. Or like for tests, I feel like everything like just falls out of my brain. I'm a horrible test taker, but I felt like when I took CBD, I was able to be like, wow, I felt like I could focus more. I could pay attention to the questions. More things stuck to my head, like, or stayed in my brain, I guess.
I would like to clarify a couple of things with Emma. Before CBD, she's always been high strung with grades. She's very that grades affect her. She has to have an A. And this is not from me. She actually gets mad at me because I don't look at her report card, and I don't think I have for years. Because a grade is just how you did that day. It doesn't measure intelligence or effort. But I happen to have 2 of my 3 children that have to have straight A's or they flip out. So she's president's list. She's, doesn't get in trouble. She's always been a good student. She gets her work done and has to get it done. Hurry up and get it done now. She can't hold off on anything. So she definitely has that high anxiety pressure on herself to do well, actually to be very good at anything that she does. So it's not that she was making bad grades. It's just that she was driving herself crazy, worried about missing something. So her anxiety would get so high, I mean, literally she would vomit before taking a test. And in my head, I'm like, but you make straight A's. Like, you're going to be okay. And you don't get in trouble in my house if you don't get a good grade. She had a D one time on one test, and I thought she was going to just flip out. And I'm like, so did you study as hard as you were supposed to? No. Okay, so next time study like you're supposed to. Okay, end of discussion. Because it's never been, I just don't measure my kids on the grades that they bring home. So just to clarify, she was good in school. She was miserable doing that well. So,
yeah. I feel like it relieves pressure because I don't feel like, so get it done. And I feel like when I received a C this year, I felt like more relaxed or more like, it's okay, I know what to do next time. But I remember when I did receive that D, I cried and cried and cried. But now I feel like it's not like well, if I get a D, so what? But it's more like I'm not as hard on myself, but I still receive good grades. So I'm able to sleep better at night knowing, I can do this and I have to block everybody out of the world if I don't get what I want.
That's awesome that you've been able to utilize CBD to help you out with that. How has that been received at school, you taking cannabis oil?
Some people are like, that's insane that your parents would let you do that. It's not like I'm like, oh, I'm using it to get higher, I'm doing it to be cool. Some people are like, that's awesome. And they like listen to my facts. Because like my mom, she teaches me a bunch on it. And just the other day, we had a health discussion on drugs and drinking and all that kind of stuff. And they're like, well, you can overdose and you can do this. And I'm like, no, that you can't, And they're like, well, how do you know? And so I just go on and on about, well, my mom does this and she tells me this and that kind of stuff. And so they're kind of like, well, they don't always accept it. So there's always those people that are like, that's crazy, that's not, something that you should be like allowed to know. Or I guess you can say,
you shouldn't teach your kids about plants.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's others that are like, well, that's cool, she does that. And then there's like the people that are like, I'm happy that it helps you, I want to learn more. And so I feel like there's always those different groups of people that take it different ways.
This is just amongst your peer groups?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I talked about it with my friends. It's not like I go spread it around. But I mean, like I do talk about it and be like, yeah, I do this.
How do you describe it to your friends who say you're just getting high off of this?
I use real life examples of myself. I like to use my grades again. So on my bus, I have a group of people that I sit with, and we always talk about like what we're nervous for and we'll ask questions. They can even notice how much more I remember. And so I just kind of talk to them about how it helps me. But the people who say, well, that's crazy, you shouldn't do that, I tell them, believe what you want. You're receiving one side of the story. You're, again, not looking into the facts. And for me personally, I'm going to trust my mom, and I'm sure others trust their mom, I'm not going to just believe everything that my mom says. I'm going to look up my own things. And I have. I'm going to be 100% honest. And I'm like, well, yeah, my mom says this, but really, is that true? So I also tell them, like, I'll give them different websites that my mom's told me to like, or told their patients, well, if you want information, go look here. And so I'd be like, well, if you think this, maybe you should go check yourself and look here. And so I just kind of like, I'm not going to tell them and get in this big argument, but I'm going to let them know that there's definitely two sides of the story, and I don't think you're on the right one.
I like that. I mean, for me, anxiety has always been there. The thing is just like everything in life you have to worry about, and just, I mean, all the possibilities of people who want to rip you off or hurt you, or, you know, if you don't do good on this test or if you don't do good on this interview, you know, your future's at stake, and like all these overwhelming things that just I have no control over anyway. But it feels like I'm supposed to be able to do something. But then I take CBD and I can experience all of those things, and they happen, and then they're over, and I've experienced things in a way that is really easy to process. I don't know.
Yeah. When you have a deficit in the endocannabinoid system and you replace that deficit with another natural product that fits, you know, in that receptor site, it does help. Just like, you know, we try and do the same thing with pills. Unfortunately, those have all the side effects and can, you know, hurt you and or kill you. But CBD, especially alone, or at least, you know, Emma, I choose with her, she prefers a full spectrum without the THC, but with all of the other cannabinoids. But CBD itself is shown to be equivalent to an atypical antipsychotic without the side effects of typical atypical psychotics. So that's how it helps a lot with anxiety. It kind of puts the trains back on the track. It doesn't force anything to happen. So if you have a deficit in any system and you replace that deficit, it will work better. If your car is out of oil and you give it oil, it will work better. So I think they just call that feeling, quote, normal, or what you're supposed to feel. You're replacing something that's missing. There's nothing wrong with you. You're low on something and you fill it up. She doesn't get high at all, and it doesn't even make her sleepy unless she's not in a regular sleep pattern. So that's when people say it makes you tired. No, your body's tired and it makes your brain work. So your brain's like, dude, you're tired. Go get some sleep. You know, so it's really that simple. And it's helped a lot with her sleep pattern. She is a go to bed early, wake up early, you know, kind of person. I have noticed recently.
Are you a runner?
No.
Okay, so you're not totally crazy.
Well, I don't know about that, but she's not a runner. I think all teenagers are technically a little crazy, and I think we remember that. But just kind of, it's. I think it's improved from my outlook. Improved her quality of life and her ability to kind of see things as, you know, teenagers in general, it's hard. It's hard to be a teenager. It's hard to have pressure. It's hard to think that everyone's looking at you. It's hard to live up to expectations. And in her case, these are her expectations. My expectation is that you bust your butt and try and you earn your own way. I'm not raising basement dwellers, I tell her. Like, you know, so she has to work hard. And in fact, she worked in my clinic. Over the summer at 13 years old last summer, not like as a real job, but just helping out with, you know, files and things like that. You know, she had to help people around the office. She had to babysit. She had to do yard work. And so she's really good at that. It's just sometimes that anxiety really gets to you, and it's not that there's something wrong with you. It's just that your perception is altered due to a chemical, you know, imbalance. It's literally just science.
You said that you've talked to your friends about using CBD, and some other kids around have obviously caught wind of that. Have you told your teachers, or are you keeping that kind of on the down low?
I've told my health teacher, and she's very for it. She actually said that her mom is on it. So that made me feel a little more relaxed or comfortable talking about it with her. I don't really talk about like using it as much. I did tell my gymnastics coach the other day because she said something about cancer, and she had a cancer scare, and I was like, well, have you tried this? And she's like, no. I was like, are you scared too? And I just kind of told her my experiences. She's like, I was like, are you against it or scared? And she's like, I'm more scared. And again, I went with the, you know, research this site or go to this site. And then I told her my experiences. And she kind of like, we were short on time, so we didn't really get into it as much. But I felt like she was able to be like, okay, you know, she uses it. I feel a little more comfortable. So I don't really go telling everybody or telling my teachers as much, but if they were to ask, I would definitely be honest with them. I'm not scared of telling people. It's more of how would they react with me. So,
how aware are the students about the medical cannabis program of Ohio? Do they know it exists, or?
Yeah, the people on my bus definitely do. Because I go on rants all the time, when are the dispensaries going to open?
I love it.
Some of the people are like, what are you even talking about? You're going crazy. And then some of them are like, I kind of get you, but again, I don't know as much as you on this subject. But I feel like a lot of my friends, like close friends, they know what my mom does, and I explain it to them all the time. And most of them accept it, and some of them are like, your mom's just a drug dealer, or your mom's wanting people to go, smoke pot and get high. And that's another thing where I have to explain, more about it. But my close friends know more about the programs and the different things, like information on it, because I like to talk about it. It's something that we talk about all the time in my house. So it gets me talking about it. And I feel more comfortable each day talking about it with other people because you're allowed to be open-minded, and it's not something you have to always hide. So I feel like a lot of the kids at my school know more by just realizing that it's not something you have to hide, and there's always different sides of the story, and there's a lot going on with Ohio right now.
Have you ever had any awkward encounters with teachers regarding cannabis? What class was that? What teacher?
That was in social studies. I was in 7th grade, and we were doing a project on Renaissance, and we got to pick groups based on different clothing and then religion, and I decided to do medical because I want to be in the medical field. So I was like, medical. And of course all the nerds are going over medical, they don't want to be in the hard subject. So I went over there, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm thinking of different ideas, and cannabis popped in my head because it's something we talk about. We didn't talk about it as much, but I've heard my mom talking about it, and all good things. So I did more research on it, and I realized that it's something that they did use back then. And so I wanted to do the visual, we had to have a hands-on visual type of thing in our presentation. So I wanted to do these little jars, and I filled one I put a hot dog and red water to make it like a pig's liver.
That's so gross.
That.
Wow.
I just thought it was really cool. And then I did.
So gross.
I put mulch and a bunch of dead leaves and water and green water and said it was cough syrup. And but then I was, again, thinking about cannabis, and I didn't really know what it looked like. I'm thinking it was going to be like a powder, something that's usual drug. So I didn't really know what it looked like, but when I looked it up, I saw a plant. So I'm thinking, well, I obviously am not going to be able to bring in real, marijuana. So I decided to just go outside and find something that was closest. And during that time, the leaves were sprouting on the tree and the buds.
It was spring. It was literally last year at this time.
Yeah. So I just decided to pick off those and put them in a jar. And she asked me, I remember walking in the classroom, she's like, what is that? I was like, cannabis. And she's like, I don't really think that's appropriate. And I was like, why? And she just said, well, because it's not something that everybody uses. And, she's like, it's just not well known. I don't think it's just appropriate for your age to be talking about that. And so I just said, okay. And she's like, well, I need you to remove the label. So, of course, I was like, well, I'm totally against removing the label, but I did anyways. And I remember going home and telling my mom, and you could see the blood rushing up to her head. She's like, because she doesn't get involved in the school. She's not one of those, I lived through my child, kind of yoga moms, we call it.
Sorry.
But she told our principal and the teacher in the nicest way possible and was like, I will gladly have a little meeting with you guys, to inform you more about it. But in our family, it's used as medicine. So she will describe it in the medicine ways or why it's used or how it's used. When I put it back on there, I didn't ask her, but she didn't say a word. She just was silent. And therefore, even when you're presenting, we had the superintendent come over and watch us present, and he was asking what the different jars were, And I was explaining it. And once I said cannabis, he just shut up and was like, that's awesome. Like, cool. And still to this day, there's currently that social studies teacher doesn't work there anymore. She wanted to go back to her school that was very close to her, and in another social studies room in 8th grade. I don't have her as a teacher now, but she is right next to my math class, and I always go in and say hi. And because I have a bunch of friends in there, and she has all my jars up there, and cannabis label still on there.
That's right.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
It was just a matter of education. And one thing in my house is, even if we don't agree with history, it's history, and we talk about the real history, not the sugar-coated, everybody was a hero history. We choose not to have history repeat itself. And I did it, and I offered, and I said, and this was at the time, and I said, I look forward to, I have multiple students. The multiple students from her school are actually patients of mine in the mental health and holistic practice. And I said, I look forward to September when I can give them this natural plant as opposed to the poison that I'm allowed to prescribe them every day. So you may want to educate yourselves on the law, and you may want to develop those policies and procedures. And I'm more than happy to come in and educate the teachers on both the history and the medicinal uses and the law of cannabis. And I never got a reply. But at the same time, Emma marched in the classroom the next morning. She put the label back on the jar. And, at the actual Renaissance, the festival, the superintendent walked in, beelined for Emma's booth, like her area, and asked her a bunch of questions. And it wasn't about people smoking a bunch of pot. It was used by this doctor for this animal and for this ailment. And facts just like the hot dog bun in vinegar, whatever gross thing represented the pig liver. People don't talk about pig liver either, but it's what was used in its history, and agree with it or not, it's the way it is. And school is not to put your political beliefs on children, and especially not my child.
it's the vibes are odd, I guess. It's like, I don't want to say the wrong thing because I didn't know at the time the right thing. And she seemed very against it. So I didn't want to start an argument or a big fight or anything like that.
Well, you don't fight with your teachers. That's just respect.
Well, yeah.
You come home and tell mommy what happened. And
Mommy picks the fight.
Yeah. But you don't fight with your teachers. And that's the first time I've been up there for years regarding Emma. I don't get involved as far as discipline or policies unless you're infringing on her rights. Other than that, strong believer my children are with you 8 hours a day. You should have full reign to do your job, but I will also do mine.
Yeah.
So, and that's where it kind of changed things there. And honestly, they seems to me that they started to educate themselves, but Emma will also bring up the subject. It's not always brought up to her. Emma will go up to the new resource.
Outspoken there?
Yes, she will go up to the new resource officer in the hallway and say, "What are your views on medical marijuana?" And
oh wow.
So yeah. The good thing is, and what I try and instill in her is, we may believe that we are right, but that other person also believes that they are. And the object of the game is not to be right. The object of the game is to educate, and sometimes that just means planting seeds. So it might have taken that teacher a year, but obviously she's educated herself, and at the end of the day, that's what's important.
Well, Emma, thank you so much for taking the time to share that you're the first minor person that I've interviewed who uses cannabis as medicine. I think that is awesome. I really appreciate you having the courage to talk into the microphone. Is there anything else you'd like to say to people listening who are considering cannabis or even possibly considering it for their kid?
It's not going to hurt you. You should always give it a try. I think it'll help. Don't be scared. I guess, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm sure you recall Emma telling her classmates who are misinformed about CBD to check out certain websites to research and hopefully have their eyes opened by their own investigations. After the interview was over, I reached out to Tiara for some specifics. There are some good links on lotushealthllc.com under resources that you should definitely check out. Now, she clarified that she doesn't agree with everything that is on all of these sites, but they're a good place to start digging. These sites include Leafly, Greenflower, Healer.com, TCMI Global, and the American Academy of Cannabinoid Medicine as a good source of information listings. I would love for you to go check out one of those sites, especially if you haven't yet. Then go to considercannabisnow.com and comment under this episode something you learned or something you disagreed with. Just keep it kind-hearted and educational. That's all I ask. And remember to tell Emma thanks while you're there. It takes guts to put yourself out there like this.
If you would like to be a guest and share how cannabis has helped your health and wellness, contact us at considercannabisnow.com. If you found anything of value in this episode, please share it with someone else. Remember to subscribe for free and get every new episode delivered right to your phone. Join us next time as we consider cannabis together.